Welcome to another episode. I'm John. You're back again. Now, look, the first time we talked, I felt like the conspiracy guy, but you have a show called Connect the Dots. Let's get that out of the way. And you said that you would have more information for me this time, and I'm curious to what that means.
I don't know, man. You ready to go down this rabbit hole? Yeah. So it's me and it's my wife's cousin. He's my co-host. That's Jason, and we do a show called Connect the Dots, where that's what we do, man. Everything's intertwined, and it's pretty fucking crazy of what really connects. You know what I'm saying? Like from the disclosure to Operation Paperclip, all of that is connected. So I so I don't know if you've listened to my most recent podcast. I'm gonna get my plugs out of the way first because we've had some crazy shit happen. It's so you can find us on Instagram. It's connecta. That's crazy. And on Twitter at Connect the Dots.
I'm gonna link that in the description because I don't know what you just said, but okay.
Yep, dots.connecta. That's on Instagram because my name is taken. Boo. And Connect the Dots on Twitter. So I say that first because it's a funny story. So I had my last two podcasts. When they started plugging their stuff, our setup on Anchor mysteriously kicked them off.
Do you think that's because of what you said?
Now, according to one guy, the government listens to him. Sounds crazy. I'm right there with you, but it happened not once but twice in the same sentence.
Okay, well, what are you saying though? Like, what information do you have that's going to blow my mind? Because I think I sent you a podcast episode. I don't know if you listened to it. So that guy follows me on Twitter, Josh Rogan. I've listened to everything where I thought like these educational systems, I've talked to plenty of academics that were pulling funding on the basis of what these people were researching. The school didn't like that and they control wherever it goes. Now I started to realize it's a lot bigger than that. Now it's actually the CCP, the Chinese government is actually funding a lot of these institutions. And if the CCP sees that this institution, one of their scientists is researching something they shouldn't, they tell them that they're going to pull their funding and the school is in danger of losing a couple $1 million, that they tell the person they can't research that anymore. So now it's censoring our information and making us learn. And that's why we have all these woke college kids. It's because these college kids are being brainwashed by the CCP. They're funding towards the government, the academic programs showing a darker side of American history, making you hate the country you live in to split up our country even more, kind of slowly taking us over with a slow war. That's what I've been interested since we last talked.
So that's nothing new. That's like insider espionage.
That's not a good answer. That's not a good answer. We need to focus on that shit.
Because that's nothing new because we do that there too. So it's what they do to us, we do to them.
Yeah,
so
we're horrible. I hate it.
Yeah, and we staged coups and all this other stuff. I mean,
Operation Artichoke.
I'm not interested in all that stuff. What I'm more interested in is this rabbit hole I've been into called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, Robbie.
Like
Close Encounters of it's where you summon extraterrestrial life.
You can summon
yourself. Yes, like summons it's you making contact to them and they come to you and show themselves.
Okay, John, I'm going to say this to you because before you get into this, I want to know everything about the summoning thing, but I want to understand to you, since we last talked, I have now talked to 3 people with the exact same alien encounter experience, and they do not know each other, and they were hundreds of episodes apart. So about a year or so ago, like you were last on, I've heard.
Do you know what that's called?
Distinctive encounters of 3 lights in the sky and like a 2-dimensional thing.
See, everyone's got a different story. So those 3 people, that's called synchronicity. You know what I'm saying? That's when we all have something intertwined and we don't know each other. That's called synchronicity. And from my research and what we found is that stuff like that is common in a small group of a small group. You see what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things where 3 people of this group may have the same thing, but the other 5 may have something else. You see what I'm saying? It's one of those things. And so what we've been gathering is that, so we talked to a guy named Costa, and he runs a CE5 network out of California, specifically San Francisco. You can go find my podcast and you can find his website and everything. It's super awesome. But what he does is he's a leader of this group that makes contacts, and his outreach is millions of people. And his message is, let's not wait for the government, let's make contact ourselves. And it's called the People's Love Movement. And they go out in small groups and whatever, and they initiate the steps of CE5, and they make contact. Now that small group of people will have the same experience because they're all there. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And it's not one race that's I don't even know how to explain it. It's not one race presenting itself all the time.
How would they have synchronicity though if they're at different ages and they saw them at different time periods? Like one kid was
Because
in
they all,
Alaska when he saw it, and another person was like 20 years later was just in another state.
it could be something in your DNA, your personality type, something along that line, that where they all have something in common. You see what I'm getting at?
Like
That's something like that. Whatever, whatever. That's just what I'm gathering, is when people start seeing the same race, they have something in common that this race likes to see. You see what I'm saying? Like, or once, you know what I mean?
I'm trying to look through my
Or
brain to
it could
figure
just
out what
be,
that is.
it could be a giant coincidence. But when you have these people, or when you experience it yourself, so the synchronicity might not be on those three people, Robbie. It could be just for you, where that's how they're trying to talk to you, is they're showing you something and multiple times.
I already have dementia. Please don't do this to me. I'm starting to think like, are you telling
Dude,
me they're sending whatever message
that's
the aliens
every
are
episode
sending?
we've been doing. That's every episode we've been doing, Robbie.
Jesus
That's
How do
and
you
like,
wait? So you're saying there's specific messages that just get sent out like a broadband thing, but then each
no, there's
person
some
receives
specific.
them differently.
Nope, there's a specific message sent to each people, like each person.
What message are you getting?
I mean, I don't think I have a message yet, but I think my message is to, what, how I've gotten my guests has been people, like referrals. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you invited me.
and
I was like, I don't know what you want me to talk about. I don't think I've ever had like an alien experience.
but you can talk about disclosure. But it's not even just about alien that's just something that we got down. And so it all started, we watched a documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, Jason and I. And actually he's up in your neck of the woods, man, in Maryland. And yeah. And so we watched this documentary, be like, how cool would that be to initiate it? So I got the app, and like, I haven't went full-fledged into it yet, but Jason and I decided to explore it more. So I reached out to some people, and I had my first guest, Jeff, on, and he's been doing it for like 20 something years. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Stephen Greer is.
Yeah.
But he's the founder of the disclosure movement, of Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Like, he is the man that started this movement of it all. And people like Costa took his message and went another way, not in a bad way, but he went his own direction. Like, oh, I believe this, but I don't care about the government stuff. So I want to just focus on, uniting us as people, broadening our horizons, stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. And then, we had Daniel. Daniel's on. Daniel was a friend of Costa's. Costa was a friend of Jeff. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all friends. And it's one of those things where, I'm learning that, you're connected with certain people, not by chance, but on purpose. You see what I'm getting at? And each one of those persons, like, I had some kind of connection to, whether it being, something, because I've never met these people in my entire life until, I've had them on and interviewed them. And either Jason or I had some kind of like connection, where I'll give you an example. The craziest one was Daniel. I mean, he's such a stand-up guy. He went to college in Annapolis. Annapolis is where Jason lives. The school that he went to, St. John's University, they used to call him Johnny's. You know what I'm saying? And like,
here's what's funny is I actually discovered that a different way. I discovered that through talking with genealogists, because I had a childhood best friend, a guy who made my original intro. he was related to the great Robert E. Lee or whatever you want to call him. That's how they always introduced him as great.
Yeah.
Society today does not think so.
No.
But so after, I think he was my friend from like kindergarten or third grade all the way until like sixth grade or seventh grade. We're still friends. We just didn't hang as much as we did before. It was like
Oh
every
yeah.
day I was over there, to where his dad was like, we need to buy you a toothbrush because you've been here for like a month. Um, but then I met a new friend. His name was Travis. Now, me and him were hanging out, and he goes, dude, I got this pipe. That's my great, 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 however many greats. And I was like, and he hands it to me. I'm like, it has a picture of Robert E. Lee on it. He goes, yeah, that's my ancestor. And I was like, wait a minute. So two of you guys that are related to, and I actually connected them. They found out they are long lost cousins, but
Yeah.
somehow my genetic traits have somehow found that their genetic traits were like friendship, communication, which
Yeah.
it was a random coincidence, but it's like, is that the genetics of them? Is that their scent? Is that something that my genetic traits picked up, were able to link to? Is that kind of what you're talking about a little bit?
That's called synchronicity, man. That's just when things happen to you. You're connected to these people on purpose.
Like to do something insane, like start a
You
cult?
you you reunited two long lost cousins.
That's true. Is that all I'm good for then? Is just reuniting two
You're
long lost people?
or maybe you're good at connecting the world, connecting people to
Now
each other. You know what I'm saying?
I call myself, actually, this is the thing. I am a stepping stool. Every time I have a guest on, I'm friends with them for a little while, but then I match them up with someone, and next thing you know, bam, I'm like the expert matchmaker.
Yeah. See, you connect people that is your purpose.
I just feel like a
I'm not gonna
whore
say
at that
that's
point.
not
I
all
feel
you're
like I'm
good.
used for as a dirty tissue.
No, man, that's you can't have it that way. But no, it's so that's something that we've learned from Daniel, and he was the one that opened our eyes to synchronicity because he does a lot of like hypno regression to people who've experienced mind blocks from like abductions, from us, from they call them false abductions. It's he does a lot of crazy stuff, and it's very interesting to hear him talk. And I mean, he's smarter than the world combined. I mean, he's just I couldn't speak highly enough about him. So I mean, so that's kind of like the rabbit holes we've been going down. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's it's something bigger. You know what I mean? Like, oh, conspiracy theories and this and that. Actually, we had our last episode was on conspiracy theories, and it was one of those things where they're just kind of running rampant. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, conspiracy theories aren't cool anymore. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like they've got really watered down. And since the QAnon thing, it's just it kind of puts a bad light on like people actually doing research on like actual government things or things that actually happened. You know what I mean? That they
Well,
tell us that it didn't happen.
the
You know
one
what I mean?
lab
Like,
thing we couldn't even talk about because they were considering it was a conspiracy, or it was blasphemous, or it was anti-Asian, whatever it is, all because of what Trump said. And then now they're looking into the lab, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a fucking duck. It's like nobody's trying to be racist here. I think people just want the truth, but then you get labeled as something. This is when like I see my thoughts on the alien thing, for instance, is I think the reason why, and it sucks because the representation with people that are aliens aren't the best. I mean, I follow a bunch of UFO Twitter on or Twitter, and it's just
mhm,
people like Jefferson Starship or Cosmic Clyde. It's like,
yep,
Jesus, can we get one person that doesn't look like they have a tinfoil fucking hat on? And then
yeah,
because but anytime you hear an interview, I think Joe Rogan had a guy that has the most famous alien abduction story, and when he's describing things,
yeah.
people
The
are like, this dude's
fire in the sky.
yeah, but
Yeah.
people are
What's
like,
his
this
name?
dude's a liar. And then I look at it like, I don't think he's a liar. I think your brain's trying to find words to correlate it to that can help explain the picture in your head. And sadly, probably with a lot of that alien stuff, we don't have words to describe what those things are because it's something different. But then Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on Joe Rogan's podcast and he asks him about the alien shit. And Neil goes, aliens, no, it's all bullshit. He goes, why with these brand new cell phones that we have, nobody can snap a picture? And he goes, well, this, and then he rambles off a bunch of things, Joe, to refute the point. And he goes, yeah, but live streams, like live, people do these lives. And if you really look at it though, he makes sense. He says that aliens I'm not saying they don't exist, but I'm saying they have not come here yet. And then Joe throws out the point that these alien UFOs might be drones or controlled things. Because why would they want to waste time coming down here? I have many theories on this, and I just look at it like, if you look at all the alien, the COVID bills and everything, they say extraterrestrial information, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't say alien. They just say unidentified flying objects. It's like, that's a broad fucking brush to paint if you're going to say aliens, but people jump on the alien factor.
So two things here. I listened to that Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, and there are videos. There's thousands and thousands of pictures and videos. If you go to MUFON or Exo Metaverse, like people like report their things live stream. But here's the thing: like you do this and you put it on social media, now you're branded. It's a stigma. You see what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things where, where I find these people is I find these people like on groups, Facebook, like they are in a community of themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like
Because
it's
everyone
not
else calls him an idiot and considers him
exactly.
this thing. It's like Alex Jones. He's got 10 of the 15 things that he's predicted correct. And I'm saying, look, 10 out of 15, I'm going to say, I'm not going to rule it out that the other 5 are wrong.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's just because it didn't happen to you or you've never experienced it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just because someone experienced something that you cannot wrap your head around doesn't make them any less of, that it didn't happen to them. You see what I'm saying? Like that's been our fleeting message lately. And we're just trying to get the stigma out of it. And, the government paints with a broad brush just because, oh, disclosure, this or that. It's a narrative. It's a narrative that they're trying to control. And, of course, they're not going to come out with like, here's bodies. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I think now, like, why, this is my theory, why this whole disclosure thing came about is because that I think that we've gotten to a point where we've kind of like duplicated these crafts that we've gotten, or has some kind of technology that we have to explain for. You
Well,
know what I'm saying?
the first technology or UFO, the first saucers ever been discovered was in Canada. It was the Arzo 79 or something like that. It looked
Mm-hmm.
ridiculously like classic, like movie scenario type UFO stuff. And it was the one thing. And then with Bob Lazar, all this other type of scenarios. I mean, this was a big trend, not even a year and a half ago, people trying to storm actually 2 years now. So people trying to storm
Yeah.
Area 51. And then now it's turned into this whole thing where I think last time we talked about this idea that the movies and everything that goes on is trying to show you different versions of aliens in case one ever did come across, we wouldn't freak the fuck out.
Yeah, it's desensitizing us. It's getting us programmed to it.
But what about all the trending shit? If the government is trying to, I don't know, make people now in fear of it, what about like all the streaming services that are showing all these alien documentaries? Is that just because it's in the eye of the public right now? Is it a way to distract us from COVID or the fact that all this government shit is going down?
I think it's a lot of things. It's that so E and I from Wine Whiskey, we did a podcast on MK Ultra, and it was a government mind control kind of a deal. And they said it shut down in the 1970s, but he came up with a good point at the end, or maybe it hasn't ended, and maybe all of
The
this
only
stuff.
topic I know everything about, and Ian didn't invite me on for that one.
Hey, that you know what? No hard feelings towards him, because
It was a
I
good
did it
episode.
and then he did it. I was like, oh, you couldn't have me as a no. I'm messing around with him, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's all these documentaries and stuff like that. I think a lot of it, like, I mean, the media does what they want. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like they're just trying to get the stigma out. You know what I'm saying? And it's maybe they're trying to get people to this is normalized. Like this is actually a possible thing. I mean, there's so many reports. You know what I'm saying? There's so many reports. If you go to the MUFON website, there is an update, at least 20 updates an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. And the MUFON's been around since Project Blue Book.
If I was gonna say to you right now, I want you to dry explain it like in the most simple base way of what you're
Explain
under.
it to me like I'm 5. Yeah, that's my favorite office quote.
That's basically, yeah. Explain it to me like I'm a child, but just talk to me on such a level where you're going to give me your thoughts on it. I don't want to hear anything from other encounters. I want to hear what you think the alien thing is, because now that we're talking about this, you talk about this messaging thing. I start thinking of how many people have I talked to, psychics or something, and they say I had this message that popped into my head. Is that your dead ancestors, or is that maybe the aliens are helping you by showing you a dream of your lost loved one? Like I lost my grandma. I had a dream about her the other night. I'm like, is that the aliens? Are they caring for me? Because I consider it like this. The aliens, if anything, maybe they had 4 planets or something, and they take little serums on each planet and they grow, and we evolve from those and turn into this thing. And then we're just the last one left. And they're looking at us like, we got to at least go down and do something. I mean, they're our last of the 4. Everyone on Mars died. Everyone on all these other planets died. They're starting to find extra civilizations to go, man, are we going to let all this fucking progress go down the drain? Or can we just go in, intervene, maybe help out a little bit? You know, they're dealing with a lot of emotional trauma from losing loved ones. Let's put images into their head to show them their, so they can have a sense of closure, a sense of this going on in there. Do you think that's a possibility, or what's your understanding of what it is?
So I think that I don't think they like created us in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's we're biological. You know what I mean? Like, do we have maybe some intervention between us and the missing link between us and chimpanzees or apes? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I possibly. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, but if I were to make a guess, like between like ancient aliens, that whole theory of like I don't think it's one of those things where they take vials. Like, I think they see us as like, maybe we can be partners and you just need to grow so we can do things.
Is that what you think abductions would be like, trying to get samples of each type of DNA thing? Like if they took a scanner over our whole planet, they're like, well, these people, like you say, some people are synchronized. These people are synchronized to this thing. We can find that gene, then we can synchronize this gene, synchronize this gene. Eventually, you don't need to abduct everyone. You just abduct a certain populations. I think we probably, maybe if we're going to broad brush it, out of all the people on Earth, maybe if there's a synchronization thing going on, there's probably 50 different genes out of all the people that we have, maybe more, but they're thinking if we can slowly take one by one, isolate those genes, we can actually put out a message to enhance their growth, to help them understand more.
I mean, that's a possibility, but I mean, I think these abductions are kind of like, all right, you're an oceanographer, right, Robbie? You're great. You're
When
about
the
to
fuck did that
go on
happen?
you're about to go on a boat, right?
Yeah.
And your thing is to study, I don't know, sharks. So you're studying sharks. You take a shark out of the water, tag it, so you know where to find it, and track its movements. You take blood samples, this or that, and you put it back, and it goes on its own way. And it goes with the baby shark and has lots of babies or whatever,
Puppies.
and do that. Puppies, there you go. Yeah, sharks are puppies. And I mean, we're not really, fucking with their DNA at all. You know what I'm saying? I just think these are the people that are just being studied. There's something about them that, here's another conspiracy theory. Eisenhower made a pact with aliens that made a secret pact out of, I think it was in Florida. So it's to say that, he had a meeting with these people or these beings, and he said, hey, if you just do this amount of people a year, then we're cool. You know what I'm saying? And we have an accord. This is a truce.
Like cows.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like that's, if you like dive down deep, like, they said that, there's a lot of reading where he actually did have some kind of, he had a meeting that was not on the books or this or that. And I mean, of course, this is all hearsay, but, a lot of deathbed confessions I've read where, it's part of their agreement to, this is how we keep an accord. You know what I mean? And what happened to recent years, the top Israeli space program manager claimed that, we've had a treaty with these beings for a long time. And we have something on Mars, we have something on the moon. Like, sounds crazy, but I mean, why would this guy risk his reputation and say it?
I mean, Buzz Aldrin was the one that said that there was water on the moon and there was an obelisk on Mars, and we found both of those things. So a bunch of people were saying shit to him about how crazy he was, and I'm just like, man, this is why I'm 100% for. They just need to be honest about their shit. Like instead of trying to hide so much, and then we find it out later. Like they told us for so long aliens didn't exist, and then they start coming out with all this unidentified flying object type shit. I'm like, what are you
Well, they couldn't
doing?
hide it anymore. They
Yeah,
couldn't
but
hide it.
you're lying, and then when you come out with this little sprinkle of truth or this little thing that's kind of like they're kind of like still kind of keeping it under wraps, or just giving it this other name for it or something like that. I'm like, look, man, you're creating people to be schizophrenic and paranoia. I understand the fear of an alien creature out there, but like we all kind of know that there's something in there. It just helps us out a little bit more and makes us come to a better level of understanding. If anything, brings us closer together if we understand there's something bigger than us out there.
Yeah. So
Wearing a
my theory,
NASA t-shirt on my show. How dare you?
why is that a problem?
Because that's Nazi inventions.
Well, just because a Nazi started it doesn't mean it's a Nazi thing.
We ended
Now, I'll get into Wernher von Braun in a minute, and I think he didn't give a shit about any of that. I mean, obviously he had to pay the part for his own life. But to go about what you're saying, that I mean, it's one of those things where what is there to gain from hiding secrets? What is there to gain from controlling information? Money. You know what I'm saying?
keeping
And it's
somebody
one
in
of
the
those,
dark. It's power. You ever walk into a classroom
ex,
of toddlers? It's fucking easy.
exactly. So it's one of those things too, like, you know, it's my opinion that they're not telling us the whole thing. One, for national security. Like, I don't blame them. I'm a patriot. Like, you don't have to tell us all that shit. You're like, I don't, that's not my pay grade, nor do I care. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you do with your top secret dark money is none of my business. As long as I get health care, my kids have schools, I have a right to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
don't give a shit about that. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, it's cool, it's sexy, it's this or that. It's one of those things where I don't give a shit. Like, if it's gonna like help protect us from the true evil in the world. And when I mean the true evil, I mean like people that don't have us as their best hearts. You know what I mean? Like, North Korea.
You're
Hey,
hitting
if
on
you
a
protect
huge
this,
you're hitting on a huge topic close to my heart, is the fact I don't like this whole like disguise that I'm not anti-government. I
yeah,
don't there are some people out there that I don't feel like should be best fit for that position that we appoint in there. I mean, it always comes down to, when
yeah,
it comes
no,
to a debate or an election, it always comes down to, well, he was less evil than the other one. It's like that shouldn't be an option, or that shouldn't be an answer. We need
well
to find
then
ways to we
you're
disguise
exactly
ourselves as a mental health caring place, but they're tossing money at it, but nobody's actually functionally watching where that shit goes. It
no,
gets lost into
no.
political corruption.
You're exactly right. And it's one of those things too. It's just we're running our government how it was in 1776. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's 2021. Like, there needs to be a revamp. There needs to be something where, you know, uh, actors shouldn't become president. If you've been in here longer than X amount of years, then you need to get someone else, and you should have some kind of degree, or something that shows that you're educated in making laws or this or that. Like, now, is that going to solve all our problems? No, it's not, because there's always going to be somebody who gets their friends in there and they start making money or this or that. Like, it's funny that, like, we're so pent up against each other, where it's, uh you're Democrat, this or that. Like, I identify as a Democrat. I mean, proud to say it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see my views as a Republican. You know what I mean? Like, but that's just my personal preference. You know what I mean? But that's what should make America great, is the acceptance of, hey, I see this view, but guess what? We're kind of stuck on this world together, and let's just make it work. You know what I'm saying? Like, who gives a shit about, how we feel about religion or this or that? Like,
I mean, I don't think
we're all
aliens care
neighbors.
about your political views. My only fear is that
No,
I would love the aliens to make a message to us, or make some great open speaking of, like, they pop in the middle of Times Square and they're fucking showing everybody who they are. But I also saw Mars Attacks recently, and I'm like, fuck that, man. I don't want my head like separated from my body and me still be alive. That's fucking
so,
nuts to me.
so that's another thing too. It's just let's put a pin in that. So let's go back
Put a
to
pin in it. That's important.
let's go back to my NASA shirt. I'm putting down to the NASA shirt. All right, so we all know that NASA was started by an ex-SS officer, Warner von Braun, right? That's common knowledge. So
Sure.
Warner von Braun, if you actually look into him, yeah, he did he did play with the Nazis and this and that. And I'm not defending his actions. Like, the Nazis are fucking disgusting as shit. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it. But I
There's
feel
a
like he
worse
was,
group of people out there called Unit
yes,
731.
yes, you're exactly right. But the Nazis are,
Trash.
yeah, they're fucking trash. And I think, from reading and especially bringing back to the United States, like, he was in it for kind of his own personal gain. Like, he was self-preservation at its finest. You know what I mean? Like, he did what he had to do to survive. Now, was all those things that he did right? Absolutely fucking not. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I would have died before I'd done any of those things. But he started NASA and all this moon and this and that because he had like 5 theories, and I'll send it to you after the show. And he had 5 predictions, just like Alex Jones did, and they've all come fucking true, except one that did not happen yet. That there's going to be a full-scale alien invasion where that's going to transfer our world into a one-world government.
Do you think there's more of a likely possibility that if aliens are real, that they're going to come here and want to help us and watch us thrive and reach this higher level of intelligence? Or do you think they're just going to force us to be these cows and be like, fuck it, you know what?
No, because
Why would they help us though?
We have trading. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have an abundance of natural resources.
That they could just use us like how we use cows. We don't have an agreement with cows. Why would they give a fuck if they can just make us mindless slaves and we can just
see, now you're thinking as a red, white, and blue American. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm thinking from if I was an alien and I was coming on a planet where people are as nasty as we are.
Where do you live? You live in the US of A, man, where we're going to take over these oil fields and we're going to sit there and kick these people off their land. Or, oh, guess what, Native Americans, this is our land. You know what I mean? Like, we've done that. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to take your shit.
Bring it to the fucking Native American ship, man. They weren't exactly the best of people either, man.
Well, that's their land. How does a piece of paper tell somebody that where they live?
What we say, this is our land right now. It's not our. It's God's land. It's the earth. It's you don't own. It's like owning the water. Right. You don't own the water. Anybody can come over here and take this. We just say it's our land because we can control it.
My point exactly. So here's my thing. Why would something so intelligent that can move, come all the way here? Wouldn't you think they destroyed us already?
No, I think they would use us to our benefit. If anything, they'd be like, look, motherfuckers, we're going to use your planet, and you're going to start building things we want you to build, like pyramids and spires that now we build. Like people talk about spires being these things that have been here long before we just built up things around them, like the pyramids. We built it up around the alien spire. We built it up around this. I'm like, man, aliens are looking at this thing. It's like, this is a valuable planet, but these monsters are destroying it. Let's make them mindless so maybe they could benefit us instead of being.
I don't think it's going to make us mindless because it's to their benefit. I mean, this is where the CE5 comes into play. You can actually go out there and summon an extraterrestrial being, and they're called your star family. So what I've learned.
Where's my goddamn notepad? You got to give me the ritual shit for that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, there's no problem. Do you use an Apple or Android phone?
I use an Apple phone.
Just type in CE5 in your Apple Play Store. It's $10, man. It's super.
What does it do?
It tells you everything that you have to do to summon an extraterrestrial being. But so here's the thing. It's like and all of these people have summoned extraterrestrials on their own or in groups and this and that. Like, I really highly recommend you checking out Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, because after all of
that's
my
an expensive
research
app. I just looked it up. That's an expensive app.
It's $10, man. It's worth it, dude. If you want to,
I don't know, man. I'm cheap, dude. That $10 even for aliens. I'm like, I'm good.
Don't be cheap. Skip Starbucks for a couple of days. You'll be all right.
I don't drink Starbucks. That's too expensive too. It's like
some muscle milk. Yeah, dude. Skip chicken. Make a sandwich that day, man. Come on.
Fucking, I'll eat a can of tuna. It's $1. It's the only reason I got it, and I got mercury poisoning from it.
Oh, Jesus.
Every day for 9 years. I ain't stopping.
But so So anyway, like these, so this CE5 may sound new to you, but this has been going on for like 20 years. And it's, it's one of those things where, you can summon these things or some of these beings, not things. These are, and they call them their star brothers and sisters. And I'll get to that in just a second. So you can actually go out, do these things, and talk or have some kind of interaction with an extraterrestrial being. And
How do you know
you
if it's an
cannot, and
extraterrestrial
let me
being?
go into step one. You cannot summon any of these extraterrestrial beings if you don't have anything less than love in your heart. So you have to summon them with good intentions.
It's fucking impossible. Nobody's love at heart. Not even Gandhi. Even Gandhi said that he was willing to fight for something he believed in.
That's something that you believe in, but when you're by yourself, like you have to come to somebody at peace. When you're trying to make friends, do you have hate in your heart?
I try not to have any hate, but I also get pissed off when I
But
see somebody like driving really
but you
slow on the road.
but you see what I'm not talking about, like normal everyday things. Like you're really truly trying to befriend somebody.
Yeah, I'm your friend, right? We
Yeah,
worked
well,
up
I'm
on
just
this
saying. Oh, I'm not
relationship.
saying like you and I. I'm saying like you go to some like a complete stranger, like this guy's awesome. Like
Hey
let's
man,
be
nice shirt.
friends. Exactly. So it's one of those things where, do you go, do you come at that person with, like, oh, fuck you, or do you go, hey man, let's hang out, let's grab a beer, whatever you want to do? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but how
that's,
many people say that and then in their head they're really thinking I fucking hate this person?
but here's my thing: is a million people have done it. Over a million of people have done it. That's
It's a lot of people.
1% of the earth.
Seems like love would be a dumb one to try and achieve. Wouldn't it be like inner peace?
Well, that's the same thing. Love, inner peace. You gotta have something with it. They call it good intentions.
Okay.
So that's the official name of it. So you have to be in the mindset of good intentions. You cannot have any other, it can't have anything less.
How is this not more
And
known though if it's been around for so long? Like if you would think the aliens thing would be a thing, but all we see is on these, like we said, with the CIA documents of the release of unidentified flying objects. That was on a Black Vault website and it looked like a conspiracy nut fucking made it. And we get it, it's the
so
branding, but why isn't it anything like with some actual credit, like Neil deGrasse Tyson doing it?
so so here's my thing. Like if you give someone the key to knowledge, and how many people are going to be like, John, this guy, or Robbie, this guy sounds like a fucking nutcase. Like, I'm not doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? But then you get a person like me that fucking watches it and be like, how fucking cool would that be? Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I have to do? I got to have good intentions. I got to meditate. I got to play these sounds. Let's try it. Cause that would be fucking cool. And that would be me growing myself, not only as my heart, but my knowledge of, beings from out of this world. So it's kind of those things where it's my own pursuit of knowledge, and I want to grasp a greater understanding, because I don't want to rely on Neil deGrasse Tyson or the late Stephen Hawkins. Like, I don't want to fucking rely on their opinion. They're still human. You know what I'm saying? They're super smart and they know a lot about space. But at the end of the day, they still have their opinions and this and that. Like, it's one of those things where you have to find out for yourself. And that brings me to the point where, all these people who've had these experiences, and the loads of people that I've talked to, like, they're not going to show up in Times Square and fucking zap your brains. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to make your head explode or detach it. Like, that's not what they're about. They're more about, us coming together and becoming something better. And so we can learn more. You know what I mean? Like, it's a hard for things to grasp because of like the small little bubble that we live in called Earth. We're all at each other's throats and we all have to do this or that. But like, these people have been around for millions and millions of years, these beings. And wouldn't you think that since we're such a young species that we've not hit that branch of enlightenment yet. You know what I'm saying? Like we're
I
still
don't
like
know,
we're
because every single civilization collapse, every type of period of time. We talk about the glacial period and all these types of things that occur.
we're so young. We're
Where
still so young.
it's still
America is only 300 years old.
America though, but not this civilization, not the human
But,
species. We've
but,
been
but
around a
that's
lot longer. We just branched off into
yeah.
something completely different, like
How
Scientology.
long? How long have we been around?
Couple thousands of years.
That's nothing.
When it comes to the periods of collapse, that is
That's
something.
nothing.
That's a
That
mark
is
on the system.
nothing, dude.
I've talked to
That
a
is
paleontologist that's talked about
that
the
is
glacial period and how
that is
short of
a
a time period
grain.
that was. What I'm saying is,
That
in
is
the
a grain
grand
of
scheme of
salt.
the earth, it is a very, very small thing. But when it comes to the
Exactly. This
civilizational
is
impact, every single civilization that you can
you're
study and
looking.
look up, but hold on, the collapse of
You're
every single civilization boils down to one topic by taking up every single ideology and ripping it to shreds. And the last topic that they fight on, which leads to the eventual collapse of society, is gender. Is what I'm saying is, we're at that point right now where we're fighting about that and nobody can agree on anything anymore. So to think that this society or these societies can start crumbling upon themselves doesn't mean the human species is gone. It just means that society is crumbled down to bare nothing again. We have to build back up because the foundation that we've been running on is very, very shit. It's not exactly the idea of a utopia is fucking impossible. If you look at this timeline of Earth of what we're at right now, utopia is fucking impossible without some divine intervention or some type of omnipotent being coming down here to be able to affect anything.
but
But
that's my point. That's my whole point of where I'm getting at, Robbie, is we were so young. Why do they not sit there and disclose everything here and there? Because that would a cripple the Vatican, cripple the Jewish religion. You know how many followers Islamic that would sit there and tell them that they're all fake. Like there's nothing like God doesn't exist. What you think that he created this or that, that would cripple everything. That would cripple the biggest money makers in the world. You see what I'm getting at?
I do. I think we're kind of saying the same thing. I just look at it like
Yeah,
it's very, very
but
difficult
but
to try and
but
think.
that's what I'm trying to explain to you, Robbie, is that it's we are this big. We're like we've been around this much. These civilizations are way older than us. Thousands of years is a drop in a bucket.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to the
We need to
last
get to
remaining.
like,
Oh, hold on, I talked to the last remaining descendant of Knights of the Templar. Those people.
yeah.
I had him on here, and my theory that me and him were talking about and kind of understanding was, I think that a lot of these, you ever have a party and then you invite your friend, and then your friend invites someone maybe necessarily doesn't belong there. They didn't get the invite to that party as kind of an extend a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
I think like the political, these Illuminati types that people say is insane to think of, but you see so much shit that links to that a little bit. I think
Mm-hmm.
that these elites somehow the party invite got extended over, and then that we're getting all these people like that aren't supposed to be in office that are doing horrible fucking things and making it even worse, because I believe that there's a cheat code to the simulation or the system, and that's stuff like the Knights of the Templar had. And he was telling me there's stuff that was passed down that they're doing these rituals like Bohemian Grove and stuff. There's a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of shit that they've been doing to get power. And then sadly, now the power is being distributed to like everyone gets power, but the actual people that should be having the power. And that's why the system has kind of been running shittily. It's been running off like a half-assed mentality.
But here's also too a thing like we talked about in our last episode, the true people of power. You don't know their fucking names. You don't know their faces. You don't know anything about them. They don't have social media. They don't have any of it. We probably pass them in the grocery store and we do not know. Like the faces that we can, the names that we can put to faces. Who gives it? You know, like they mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. So true people are running the power. You know what I'm saying? Or and what we know as power, like the president, like let's just say the president, you know what I'm saying? And like that is only a temporary job. He's only in there for a maximum of 8 years. There's probably some guy standing behind him who's been doing this for 50.
Yeah, that's my thought on Elon Musk, for instance. You
Yeah.
ever
And
how me and you might talk to each other? We would probably look at maybe a person that's like doesn't maybe a lower level of intelligence, like a child. We would look at them like we know
yeah.
a lot more, and it's hard for us to have a conversation with them. I consider that with Elon Musk looking at us. He looks at us like it's hard to have a conversation. Then who's looking at Elon Musk like it's hard to have a conversation with him because he's so dumb? So I look at
Yeah.
that like did one day the government was like, hey, we got this technology, but we need someone who's advanced for those people to be able to be the face of it. And then they just gave him all this technology and all this money and made him this one of this like high figure where that's how he is now. I don't know.
Well, and then so we've all heard of DARPA. This is
Yeah.
why DARPA scientists only have 2-year term limits.
Why? Because they can get too
Just
much power.
no, it's because they're compartmentalizing. So these people work on it for 2 years, and the government says, "All right, that's enough. That's we can't share anymore. Get out. We'll move to the next person. They're going to learn about it, and they're going to do that." So
It's like Doctor Strange when he kicks him out on the street and he's like, wait, I have so much to learn.
yeah, exactly right. So it's one of those things where Elon Musk is, he built himself from the ground up. You know what I mean? But there's probably some person that, you're exactly right, that you're like, man, that whatever. Like I feel like Bob Lazar was that way. I mean, shit, he made a car that ran out of water.
I think eventually they figure out like if you're involved in it, they feel like you're gonna scream. So before you start uncovering some real shit, they want to kick you out. And then you already seen so much, you're like still saying it out there.
Yeah,
Like that's a scratch to the surface, but it's nothing that we're gonna or they look for those whistleblowers and they hire them,
yeah,
show them a little bit of stuff and give them some misinformation to go on the wrong trail.
exactly right. So it's one of those things too. It's just like, you know, let's just give an example for Space Force. Space Force came out of the fucking blue,
Steve
right? I
Carell.
mean, no, I'm talking about the actual Space Force. Like,
That show came out of the blue too, you have to admit.
yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things where like I feel like that was great timing on their part. Like, let's film this while the ground is hot and let's make fun of it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And like, that show was a comedic. That was pretty good.
I thought it was good too. People hated it though.
In the first couple episodes, I'm like, ugh, but then you got into it. You're like, all right, this is cool. But all right, so we created Space Force to protect the. We have to have dominancy in space. Why? Because the narrative is that these things are threats, but what it is, it's a threat to them because they no longer have, you know, we're your parents. You know what I'm saying? It's the parents that do not want their kids to leave home, and they don't want them to, because they miss the control or something like that. And the more people that educate themselves on this subject, the the better the world has become. You know what I'm saying? Like the more that, or enlightened the world has become. The more enlightened that it's become if you start sit there and educating yourself on this. And why are they making Space Force? Well, that's crazy because Warner von Braun said that there's going to be a false like a red flag event that's going to trigger the change of the economy. Well, that's crazy because if you think about it, now the narrative, if you look on CNN, is, hey, yeah, this is us. Some of it's us, some of it's them. And I just watched that on the news the other day. Like, holy shit. So at first in January, you said we don't know what the fuck they are. Now you're saying that, oh, this could be us and it could be them. We don't know. Well, we're going to figure this out. Oh, wow. So some of it's us. So here's the thing. What's becoming more popular now? Cryptocurrency. Oh, that's a universal currency that's in there. Let's connect the dots, Robbie. Come on, man. That is a universal currency accepted everywhere.
It's so different because
It's a universal dollar.
the last time you were on, it was not like this. And then now you've went down this, and I get it because all the shit. No, you're doing this high praise to you, golf clap to you, sir. Mostly because you're doing this in such a structural and actual thought through, normalized way compared to everything I see, which is like how I get with the CCP, where I'm like, and I just start freaking out. But it's also so much, it's crazy information because you're surrounded by it to where it's like you've got it figured out, you're doing it in the right way, but it's still such a crazy ass topic because I think it's just not, there's never been anything like it before, so we don't know what to put that or compartmentalize that into.
It's not like you're learning history, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's a black and white subject. It's a evolving, fluid subject. And it's a subject that has a lot of stigma to it. That's why they don't call it UFOs anymore. That's why they call them unidentified aerial phenomena, to get the stigma out. You know what I'm saying? Because we're gonna start. All right, so I live in Hampton Roads, Virginia. We have the world's largest naval base in my backyard. The first time I saw the B-2 stealth bomber, I shit my pants. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
Yeah,
it
we have
is
the air show in my town. It'll be here probably next month.
Yeah. So when you see the B-2 Spirit, when you first saw that, it's probably the same way when people saw the SR-71 Blackbird for the first time land. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's technology that we don't understand, and how the fuck did we get there? So it's one of those things where, they're gonna have to spill the beans of, like, we're gonna see something that, I saw something, I think it was either Wired or Popular Mechanics. There's an article where the US Navy has a patent for a warp drive. How the fuck are you gonna explain that?
Well, it's better that we don't have it.
So,
That's how
well,
they say
it's exactly right. So the the element 115 that Bob Lazar was talking about, we're gonna connect it out some more. That he said existed back in the 1980s. People were like, "Oh, that's stupid." But back in 2015, Russian and American scientists found element 115, which is supposed to be an element with, it's like a fuel. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fuel for these drives.
the easier example for that would be is if you don't think it's possible, think at one point in our history we would have never even imagined putting a man on the moon, and then
You're
next thing you know
exactly.
we're on the moon.
Let's go, dude. Let's go all the way back
Let's go to fucking
to.
Mars.
Let's go all the way back. Let's go older than that. Go to Nikola Tesla. He invented, he had the groundwork laid for free energy, free technology back in the early 1900s. You know what I'm saying? But he mysteriously died and all his documents were seized. Why? Because his stuff would have bettered the world. You know what I'm saying? So that took away the big five back in the day, the big five monopolies. Exactly, man. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to money, man. It comes down to our dependency and all of this. So it's one of those things where, it's a little crazy. So,
I get
but
it. I'm glad you explained the topic pretty thoroughly.
You're exactly right, man. But I think I have to take my leave here because I got a little one that's getting antsy.
Getting ready to wrap it, because before aliens comes being a parent, and I like that about you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
We'll get you
Families
back on
first.
for sure. In the new seasons, seasons are changing, always changing. John,
That's right.
Where can people find you
at? Find me on Twitter at Connect the Dots and on Instagram dots.connecta.
I'll make sure I link it all in the description. And thanks for listening to this episode Out of the Blank Podcast.